Hi all, welcome to beginner series of Workato. Today we learn about what is recipe, building components of recipe, and finally we will implement our first recipe. So before we move into our today's session, let's a quick recap on the previous session. We have learned about what is Workato, how it is helpful to solve our business requirements. Then we saw a dashboard, what are all information it consists of about the recipe and connections and the transaction limits set for our workspace. Then we saw jobs and job reports. Then finally, we ended our session with a quiz part. So please do check. I'll be giving my link in the comments section. Please do check out. So let's start our today's session. That is the first about the recipe and components. Recipes are user-created automated workflows in Workato that span multiple apps, consist of trigger and one or more actions. So let's understand this statement with an example. Say you are hungry and you want to have a food. So the hunger is an initiation of your process to have a food. So to have a food is it's an action which followed by a trigger condition. So the trigger is nothing but it's an event that initiates the execution of actions in a recipe. It may be a real time or a scheduled intervals. So based on your application's requirement or based on your requirements, you can set whether it's want to be a time based on or maybe you want to be application based trigger. Okay, let's discuss that in a practical way. So recipe steps, that is actions, it consists of an conditional actions, list actions, and always remember the recipe steps or actions always runs after a trigger event. Let's understand this concepts in a practical way. So once you log into your workspace, so this is how your workspace looks. So there's already one recipe which is already built in our previous session. So I'll be taking that example, this recipe to explain you about the concept of trigger and actions. So here you can see this is called a recipe which you have built from trigger to actions. Okay, so it consists of trigger and actions. Say the trigger is based out of a time interval. So I have set here every 5 minutes it has to run on my recipe, and there's a trigger conditions which is set for, say, the scheduled day has to be a Friday. If it is not Friday, then this particular recipe will not run from the step 2 to step 4. It will stop at the step 1 itself, as it is not met with the conditions, not satisfy the condition. So the second step, we have put a logger statement. It can be ignored. It cannot be. It's only for our reference to understand what information it gets when I do a formula called strf time. I'm getting time and minutes. So after that, I'll be checking the condition with the time. So if that condition met, satisfied, then the logger statement will be printed at a log in our output. So we have saw the condition can be set at the trigger level as well as in the action level. Okay, and second thing, the second point here is always remember per recipe there's only a one trigger conditions and followed by one or more actions. So third point is, if you see the URL, there is a number followed by the recipe name. It always indicates or differentiate one recipe to another. So you have to remember that every recipe will have a unique number or unique differentiator with the other one. Okay. Then fourth condition, the logger statements which I put. It is only for our testing purpose. This is not mandatory to have. So once your testing is completed, you can remove the unnecessary loggers from the recipe. So today we have saw what is recipe, what is trigger, and what is actions. So now we will start implementing our first recipe. So let's create a recipe here. So always maintain a folder structures and subfolder structures to it helps you to make a structured way of your recipes. So that also helps in referring to. So let's create recipe. I'll just give a recipe name as test, or I can give as training, followed by recipe. So I'll explain you about all the naming conventions in our future videos. So let's have a name to your recipe. I'll just give say hello world. Okay. So I'm selecting run on schedule. It's a schedule based trigger. Okay. So once you set choose the trigger level of information, that's the initiation of your process. So how it looks. Okay. This is how it looks your workspace. So what I will do here is like I'll set out trigger conditions here. That is schedule day equals, okay, today is Wednesday, right? Okay, I'll put that, and I'll just put a logger statement. Okay, just put this as hello world and put save. So please do remember, before saving, you make sure that everything is completed, the changes you want to do on your recipes. So everything is completed, because every time you save the recipe, for each step it will create a new version. So the version creates a problem when say you want to deploy into the next environment, say like production or testing environment or a UAT, say that time you don't know which version is a working condition. So if you do that, please maintain always versions and followed by the comments. I'll show you that in our once you save it. So I've saved it. Now when you exit, you can see here the version, right? So every version you can have a comment here. Let's say latest version and say working. Okay. So this saves you time to understand which version is working one. Okay. So once you do that, I'll not put the recipe in the start state, because it may create a problem every time, like it runs in every 5 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll go to edit recipe again. I'll just do test recipe. Okay. See, so it's satisfied our conditions. We say like schedule day is Wednesday, and followed by our logger statement. Okay. So finally we will build our first recipe with a trigger and trigger conditions, and followed by action with a one statement, it's a logger statement. Okay. So this completes the practical way of seeing the trigger and actions. Now we'll go back to our next part, that is a quiz part. Okay, here we go. The first question: what are two main components of Workato recipe? Select two. Any guesses? Okay, let me give you the answer. It's triggers and actions. Yeah. Here we go. The second question. What's the maximum number of triggers that can be assigned to one recipe? Okay. Let me give you the answer. That is one. Here we go for the last and final question. The conditions can be used in. Okay. Let me give you the answer. Yeah, both actions and triggers. So we have saw this setting the conditions at trigger level as well as in the action level. So you have done a good job. This ends our today's session. Hope you have enjoyed this session and please support us. Let's meet in the next session. Thank you.